It's Thursday, 11/11/2010. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, protest, rallies, and riots.
Let's do this. Is it anything like a mistress?
What do you want? It's Armistice Day, 11/11/2010.
I like how you redid you stopped recording so that you could correct your mistake of saying armistice incorrectly.
Or it didn't record, as you can look at right now. I said, wait, I have to restart it.
Yeah, because you didn't. You were bad at pronouncing. You're covering up your errors.
Okay. Anyway, it is Armistice Day.
All right. So
yeah,
exciting, thrilling. Wow, that's an exciting start to the show there. So, anything else going on today?
Hey, I don't know. You give me all this crap about saying the date, and yet no one seems to have complained about the fact that I say the date in the opening. You're so about it.
No one's even commented either way.
Yeah.
So who knows what they think?
I think we should leave the date in, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Uh-huh.
You sounded so just, it's like, I'm Rim, I'm Scott.
Why can't you just say the date the way we've been saying it? Why you got to mess things up?
Why don't you just...
His name wasn't broken.
Why don't you just keep slaves like we've been doing? Why do you got to set them free?
All right,
we got to change. We got to progress.
Yeah, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You got to change what's broke, but not what's not broke.
And I think it was broke. We didn't...
It was not broke.
Not only
did a single person complain? No, not a single person has had a problem with it.
So we should only fix things that people complain about, even if they're wrong.
No, you should only fix things that are broken.
I mean, the 2000 bug, you know, Y2K.
That was broken.
Actually, in a lot of places it wasn't, but we had to check.
But it was actual breakage. This is not breakage. This is non...
But we didn't handle the date rollover.
You're fixing a problem that does not even exist.
The fact that we didn't handle the date rollover?
No, the fact that we're saying the date at the beginning of the show. We didn't even need to say the date at the beginning of the show. We could just leave it out entirely. It wouldn't make a difference. So
we could just not do the show. Wouldn't make a difference.
That's also true.
God.
So, considering how inconsequential it is, there's no reason to change the date.
But considering how inconsequential it is, there's no reason to resist the change that doesn't cost you anything.
It does, because I think it's worse. It lowers the quality of the
I
show.
think that's silly.
You know what I think is silly? Spending the whole beginning of the show arguing about how we say the date in the show.
You're the one who started it.
You're the one who started it by changing the date.
Anyway, it's Thursday.
Thursday.
So I guess zombies. I mean, isn't that the Thursday show we're gonna do?
No, we're never doing that show.
I don't understand why people to this day demand we do a zombie show. We did that first zombie show in 2006.
They're the same shallow people who will go to the comic book store and they'll buy anything with a zombie on it, and they'll go see any movie with a zombie in it, and they'll watch any TV show with a zombie in it.
Why don't we farm out a zombie podcast just about zombies?
If they want to buy anything, right? They want to go to the store and buy a screwdriver. If one of them has a zombie on the package, they'll buy that one.
I gotta admit, if I was buying a screwdriver and there was zombie brand and like normal brand, and the zombie brand didn't cost that much more,
I would evaluate the actual screwdriver in question based on price and quality.
Screwdrivers are pretty much all the same.
No, they're made out of different materials and they're different sizes, and some of them are stronger and weaker, and
for 90% of people, it doesn't matter.
It matters.
Not really.
It does.
I have the cheapest ass screwdrivers you've ever seen.
You can get magnetic, non-magnetic.
Yeah, you know what?
Different handles, different grips.
There's no reason to not get magnetic. Magnetic doesn't hurt anything.
But there is occasionally a reason not to get magnetic.
Yeah, but rarely. I mean, a lot of people think that they shouldn't use them into their computer, but that's not hurting anything.
No, but it could be a problem if, say, you're screwing something into something and there's metal filings about it, then suddenly you got metal filings all over your screwdriver. It's like, oh, fuck.
And then you just wipe them off. I think the deeper problem there is, why are you screwing into something that's covered in metal filings?
Maybe you're screwing into something that's metal and the filings are coming out because you're screwing into...
Then you're not screwing, you're drilling!
What if it's already semi-drilled, but it's a tight fit? I don't know.
Good God.
What do we know about screwing and drilling here?
Quite a bit, in fact. If you can tell, we couldn't figure out what to do the fucking show on.
No, not at all. Let's do some news.
I do want to
get
talk
out of this rut
a little bit about this article, because it's been making the rounds and internet people are talking about it, and everyone that I've seen so far is missing the base point. The AP was reporting that...
Well, that's because the AP writes something and everyone else writes the exact same thing with different language. They just get the thesaurus and they put up the same article.
But even in comments in places, people just don't get it. So there was a study that showed that there's a strong correlation. Now, obviously, there's no
causation
proof of causation, but there's a strong correlation between people who text frequently and use Facebook, or use Facebook. This is correlated strongly with drug use and sex.
Well, gee, if you are the kind of person who has more friends, you're the kind of person who has people to text and Facebook with.
And as a result,
thus you're the people to
have
have sex and drugs with. Sex is pretty much explicitly a, friend, multi-person activity. And drugs are usually, not too many people do drugs alone.
Yep, two to 4 players, 4 hours.
Try to imagine in your head stoners. You don't think of a stoner in his room alone with weed. You think of a bunch of people passing the bong around. You know that, right? It's not a one
Well, there is the stoner who's alone in his room.
That's
but
a rare. You don't think about that, though. That's pretty rare.
That guy is the same as the alcoholic who is also alone in his room.
Someone who is lonely is a lot less likely to do drugs and extremely unlikely to have sex. So what's with the Captain Obvious?
But I think especially in the mainstream news, a lot of the commentary about this has been really weird, and they're trying to either say there's some sort of correlation between using this social technology and being a deviant or whatever.
Or how about the correlation with having lots of friends?
I think it's even simpler. I think it's a correlation with being young and the fact that society has been progressively more and more open, liberal, and generally cool with stuff as time has gone on. And the generations coming up now, when I was in high school, for all the talk kids had about, I had sex and how worldly they pretended to be, not many of them were actually having sex or even making out with each other. And that became quite apparent when someone I know had sex, and suddenly all these very worldly people were very, it was obvious that they had no idea what they were talking about. And I think if I was in high school today, it's blowjobs aplenty. I get this impression, and I think that the simple correlation causation here isn't even social people are more likely to have sex. I think it's just the generation coming up is way more liberal on average on just about everything. And if you're young, you're more likely to use new technology.
So you're just saying it's the times, right? It's like, hey, in 2010, kids are more likely to have sex. And also in 2010, kids are more likely to use Facebook because guess what? Both of those things are on the rise. They happen to be on the rise at the same time.
So in fact, I would argue that the kids who don't send a lot of texts or don't use a lot of Facebook are the kids who are actually already behind the times.
Or way ahead of the times.
I'm not getting the sense that they're way ahead of the times.
But you don't know. The times could revert. It could be a sine wave, go back and forth.
Thing is, it never really has, except for the Dark Ages.
I don't know. You look at something like the Victorian era, right, where everything was on the surface, all very, modest, but underneath, much more lewd. In reality, it was the lewdest. And then it was only after it that it actually got a little bit less lewd. But there's always lewdness somewhere, everywhere.
I think this study can really just be summed up as kids who use technology are smarter and more social and more likely to do fun things.
Yeah, it's true, too. I don't know. Whatever. So I also read about this article about a study. Of course, you never get the actual study and everything's always full of bullshit.
I got the actual study here, but it wasn't that exciting.
Oh, wow. Very cool. But anyway, this article has also made the similar rounds, and it's typical science reporting. But anyway, what it's about is it says spacing out half the day makes people unhappy in Harvard study. And they're basically saying, look, people, especially when they're at work, their minds wander about 46.9% of the time.
That's about right. I'm mostly just kind of walking around, looking around, thinking about stuff.
And no less than 30% of the time during every activity except sex. And apparently people who are able to focus on one thing for a long amount of time, as opposed to having their mind wander, are happier. And it's like, here's another situation where it's like, hello, obviously, it's not the mind wandering that is causing
mind
the
wandering
unhappiness.
Is the effect of being bored.
They're bored. They're unhappy because they're bored. So when they got nothing to do, their mind wanders. If they had something to do,
or if they
would focus on that shit.
Or like my situation at work, I have stuff to do. It's just boring.
I'm in the same situation. I don't want my mind to wander at work. It wanders because there's nothing doing.
There's a reason I'm reading C# and XNA books and because I'm bored and I want to learn. I don't want to just... Anyway.
And I would do my own thing in my free time at work, but I can't because then they own that shit.
Yeah.
If I was at home, I could get away with it because they would never know. But at the same time, I can't just be at home all the time.
My mind really only wanders when I'm bored.
Yeah, I mean, there are some days, rarely, once, maybe a couple times a month if I'm lucky, where there's actually something to do and focus on for the whole day. Because most days, I could just do all my work in like 10 minutes and that'd be it. You know, because it's so easy. And I just
There's
blow it all
another time.
away.
Sometimes I will pointedly daydream. Like, I'll be like, I'm just going to sit here and dick around.
Yes, but it's just like, I'm not, it doesn't make me unhappy that my mind is wandering. My mind wandering it's the other way around.
Whoa. I want to go back to my study for a second. You know what they define as a frequent texter?
All right.
More than 120 a day.
Okay, yeah, because basically, kids
They use it the way we used AIM.
Yeah, kids these days, if you got friends, they have they have text. They don't use AIM. They just use text messages. They have their phones with them all day. And if you're not in a class with someone now,
they're bored.
They're not paying attention in class because they're fucking bored out of their minds. So they just talk to people all day because you can't do anything else.
They're existing in this kind of meta universe where they're not bored. Their mind is. Think of this. In that study, right? People's minds are wandering, but it's daydreaming. Like, I'm bored, thinking about potatoes.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're the kind of person who has a friend that is going to text you 160 times a day, then you probably have, or you have enough friends to add up to that, then these people actually want to talk to you, which means they're actually your friends, and you actually have something to talk about with them, which means you have a lot of friends, which means you're very likely to be a person who gets along with people, and thus very likely to have sex with someone. And also, if you're into drugs, there'll be people to have drugs with.
But here's my point. In that study, people's minds wander within their own mind. They're bored, and their mind is just kind of thinking about potatoes.
Yeah.
These kids,
potatoes.
Their mind is literally, it is in a way wandering, as in they're physically in a place. They're in class somewhere, or they're like on the bus, or their mom's talking to them or something. But really, their mind is out in this shared space with all the other people they're texting. Their mind is literally wandered, and they're probably happier.
Well, I mean, the thing is, when my mind wanders at work, it's wandering on the internet, right? It's not wandering.
Sometimes I can't wander on the internet, or I've wandered everywhere interesting to wander.
That's usually my problem is I wandered the whole internet.
Yeah, when I worked at that old job in the hospital, I remember there were days where, all right, I've read everything on Fark. Nothing else to do. Should I buy Total
We
Fark?
really just need some sort of way for, people to it's like, hey, I did all my work. You must let me leave or give me more work immediately.
But here's the problem. What if their solution to that is to give you stupid work that is time-consuming?
That is unnecessary work?
For example,
as a software engineer, I could automate all work. There is no work they could give me that I could not automate.
I worked as perhaps the worst pizza chef in the history of RIT at the Ritz in the bar downstairs.
Yep.
And I was the worst pizza chef because they paid me so little that I literally just didn't care. And once I made a good pizza, and they yelled at me because I used too many ingredients. And I was like, all right, fine, back to shitty pizza I go. But anytime I was not actively making pizza or throwing away the pizza that no one bought because it was shitty to replace it with new shitty pizza that no one would buy.
You were just standing there.
I was just standing there. And my manager one day came up and she was like, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
But it's like, we already just cleaned everything.
And I was leaning against the fridge. So you know what I did? I stopped leaning and I stood there.
Okay.
And she was like, clean something. I cleaned goddamn everything. I was so bored. I pulled back like the fridge and cleaned behind that shit.
All right.
And then I leaned and she said it again and I quit. That's how I quit the Ritz. She was like, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean, like a month later. And I was like, you know what? I quit. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, I quit. I'm done.
It seems like people, it's like whenever you have a job, people act like, you need that job.
Yeah. Well, I think
like,
most people do.
I can get another job. There's never been a time in my life where I could not get a job within a few days.
I think a lot of
you
people
cannot threaten me with firing.
Either do need their jobs or they don't realize how easy it is to get another job if you actually want another job.
It's hard for them to get a job because they have no skills.
No, RIT kids, it's trivial to get a job somewhere in Rochester. It's just people don't know how to look for a job. They apply to like the obvious jobs, like the local fast food or the on-campus jobs. And they don't even think about applying to like the factory nearby to be like a maintenance guy at night.
Yeah, no one. That's a big problem just in the whole world. Is that these non-obvious jobs and no career counselors are at. I would be a career counselor if it paid better. Because I would actually be able to find people, the careers they wouldn't even think about, like somebody
underwater welder.
Oh, obviously.
F1 racer. F1 driver. You can go for that.
You could
be a race car driver.
The thing is, you got to start early on that.
Yeah, but if you got to go to elementary school kids and be like, you know what?
But I mean, right? That's a good job, right? So F1 driver, that's a hard job to get, right? But you could be the pit crew guy.
Yeah.
You could be the mechanic guy. You could make racing helmets. You could be the guy who's in charge of getting sponsorships for the cars.
You know what's really funny?
You could be the race steward, the guy who runs out with the fire extinguisher. There's like a million jobs just in that one small area that no one even thinks about. No one grows up says, I'm going to be a race steward. I'm going to be the guy who waves the checkered flag. No one thinks they're going to be that guy.
Yeah, but I'd love as a kid if someone had said, hey,
but that's actually
you can be that guy.
This is a damn good job.
You want to go for that? Go for it.
Yeah,
I remember
get to go all around the world, too.
When I was a freshman
races.
in high school, there was one of those, what career are you going to have aptitude tests? Like, what careers are you good at? And I took it, and based on everything, it gave everyone else in my class like 10 or 15 options. It literally gave me one option.
Which was?
It said market data analyst.
You're getting close.
Yeah. And I thought, fuck that. I'm going into computers and
you're analyzing market data with your computer. Wow, I never took one of those things, but I always saw jokes about them, and they were on TV shows and stuff. There'd always be every sitcom would have an episode about them if there were kids in school involved.
Yeah, it tells the one kid he's going to be a janitor,
and he's upset about it.
Yeah,
right? But yeah, I never took one of those. But that's weird that it would be so accurate. I guess even if it's random, it's going to be scarily correct on some people and incorrect on most people.
But also, if you're young and skilled generally, like you have basic human skills, and you live anywhere where there's a reasonable density of population.
In a city.
It is trivial to get to, even in a suburb, it is actually pretty trivial to get a job that'll pay you enough to live. And it amazes me, there were people I knew who could have, had jobs they hated, and they never, realized they could quit. And I always felt like I should have been the hero, like that one College Humor where the guy who plays Thus Spake Zarathustra stands up on the table, rips off his shirt, he's duct taped I quit to his chest, and runs around screaming and quitting, and eventually the cops get called.
All right.
But no, when I worked at DeBella's, one day they called me in the morning, they're like, Rim, you didn't show up to work. And I was like, yeah, I guess I didn't. And then the guy pauses and he's like, are you ever going to show up again? Because he knew. And I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm done. Or the Ritz, I quit. I'm done. Fuck this. Or the hospital. Yeah, I was kind of hoping to be out of here by lunchtime.
The thing is, when I was younger, I always looked at people who couldn't stay with one job, and I'd be like, why can't you stay with one job? What's wrong with you?
This is the longest job I've ever held.
Yeah.
Already. 3 years. And I knew people at IBM who'd worked at IBM for 40 years.
What the fuck? I'm not even 40 years old.
So things of the day. I like otters. I like cute otters. I like cute baby otters being taught how to swim. This video is great.
They don't know how to swim.
They're babies. They kind of know, but basically the way...
I mean, a fucking giraffe comes out and starts walking, right away.
Yeah,
so wouldn't an otter come out and swim right away?
Otters walk right away, but when they're babies, basically, I've watched videos of this. What otter moms do is one day, they're like, you're ready, and they pick them up in the neck.
Aren't they born in the water?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because they're basically like waterland, dogs. They go between the land and the water, and they act like dogs. That they like to play with rocks. So one day the mom
Dogs
otters
don't like rocks.
They don't pick up rocks in their hands and play catch with them.
Okay.
So one day the otter mom's like, all right, fuckers, time to learn how to swim. She'll pick them up and throw them in the water.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
And they're like, ah, and they try to get out. And she picks them up and throws them back in the water until they figure it out.
Yeah, that's the right way to go.
So this is a human doing that because the otters don't have mommies or something, and it's really cute.
Take note, people with human babies. Same thing works. Don't be afraid to do it. You're standing right there. If they start drowning, you pick them up. It's not going to be the end of the world, right?
That's how I learned how to sled and ski to a degree. I got one lesson, and then I was basically pushed down the mountain in both cases.
Yeah. It's, people are so afraid. They're like, oh, it's so cruel. It's like, yeah, the kid might be upset
You know how I learned how to
Getting upset never hurt anybody.
You know how I learned how to
right?
solder?
As long as you don't drown, it's all good.
I learned how to solder by fucking burning my fingernail off.
I had an Australian guy tell me.
I learned how to wire by shocking the shit out of myself.
All right.
I learned about fireworks by hitting myself in the face with a bottle rocket.
So check it out. This one dude, he went and he took, Mega Man, the sprite of Mega Man, and he drew pretty much every other character except for the really obscure ones that Rim likes to think of. He took the Mega Man sprite as the base sprite, and then he modified it into all these other characters.
Oh, a lot of people do that with Kirby.
Yeah.
So is there a Kraid in there?
There's Samus.
But no Kraid.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do Kraid.
How about the Cheetah Man?
He didn't do the Cheetah Man.
Any of the Cheetah Men?
It's a little obscure.
Not one Cheetah Man? I don't think it's that obscure. In fact, I think it's more well-known than a lot of relatively good
Name
games.
something that's not obscure, and it's probably on here.
Something... All right, Dick Tracy.
That's not a video game.
Yeah, it is.
It wasn't originally a video game.
So it has to be originally a video game.
Most of the things on here are originally a video game. There's a couple things that aren't video games.
All right. So very briefly, before we get on to the main bit, the meta moment, we're going to be at MagFest and PAX East and PAX West and Anime Boston and all those conventions. The book club book, we'll be finishing it soon. World War Z.
Probably the next Thursday episode, so 2 weeks from today. With
Max
the next,
Brooks. And that'll probably be the last Thursday episode that is a book club book, because after that, they're going to be their own feed.
Oh, did we decide that?
Yeah, everything. I mean, the whole big, book club thing is done.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we have to make it not on Thursday.
I don't think we should waste Thursday episodes at that point.
We don't have enough ideas for Thursday episode.
You have plenty of ideas. They're all half-assed, and we're tired.
Also
what?
Tomorrow's board game night.
Nerd NYC board game night in New York City.
If you're listening to this on Friday, it's tonight.
I probably won't be there because I got to make some license plates at work. We'll see. I'll show up if I can. Yeah,
wow.
I got to make some. But I'm going in at 11 tomorrow.
I haven't played board games in a long time. So
Me either.
I'm going.
Though this weekend, actually, in New York City on Saturday, there is the chocolate convention.
I think it's all weekend. Actually, I think it's even Thursday. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm going to go Saturday.
All right, I'll go.
And there's some sort of meetup with Robert Koo, supposedly, at a restaurant.
A ramen place that is basically directly adjacent to my office.
Yeah, I think I've been there before.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I'm going to show up.
All right.
I'll go have ramen with Robert Koo. I've never talked to him outside of business, very specific, PAX business. I've never
talked to him for 10 seconds when he took us from point A to point B.
I've had other email conversations with him, but they've always been about very specific things related to PAX, like specific question and he answers it, or here's the flight we were on where we had two people with the swine flu.
When you're a BlackBerry guy like that, and Steve Jobs is an iPhone guy, right?
I'm not going to be like, hey Robert,
well, no, basically what they do
how you doing?
Is they only reply to emails they must reply to, and they reply very shortly.
But at the same time, they reply with exactly what they needed to reply with. I was like,
and nothing extra.
I asked a question, where are the Baphodads I need to know for PAX? And he's like, Baphodads are at X.
Yep, that's all they say.
And, that's the way I am at work. I don't respond with thank you or anything. I'm not like, what you doing?
Or, hey, let's get to know each other. That doesn't happen. Anyway.
Yep. So I'll probably be at that.
All right.
And the Geeknights store is going to be coming online fairly soon. All the tech stuff is sorted out.
Let's go see here. Shop.frontrowcrew.com. 589 days, huh? Will you beat the 2-year mark?
I am holding in my hand. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm holding... Where the fuck did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay, never mind. I'm holding in my hand a certificate of authority to collect New York State sales tax, the only state in which I am obligated to collect sales tax.
Well, you're getting close to...
So, I swear to God, if no one from New York even bothers, because you realize, if no New Yorkers ever buy a t-shirt from us, I didn't need this. I didn't need to go through all this bullshit.
What if only one does?
Then it was technically worth it, even though I have to remit the tax to New York. And we're going to charge you the goddamn tax if you buy from New York. 8% or whatever, plus the clothing tax.
Anyway, if you buy clothing and not non-clothing.
So we're going to start by selling off the remaining stocks of our original Get the Pockner Off My Internet's t-shirt. We've got 2 more t-shirts in the works and other things, but those will come later. And basically, we're going to take soft pre-orders for everything that might be expensive. I'm not going to order 500 $100 hockey jerseys if I can't guarantee that at least one of you is going to buy one.
All right. All right, what's our show on?
So, rallies. Well, I guess protest rallies and riots.
Oh,
because...
but not auto rallies.
Oh, man, that'd be a good show. That'd be a real good show. I really like Rallies.
I also really like the auto
Because
rally.
Rallies are the only place where drifting actually works.
Well, kind of. But
And it doesn't really work. Usually when you see someone doing a crazy drift, they fucked up, and that's just
Yeah.
them recovering. But
anyway, but
My
no,
friend
the other,
George
the
does a
other
panel
kind,
on
the
that.
other kind of rally.
So I'm going to get right to the point, and then we can talk about rallies and protests and riots and everything. I think in the modern world, protests don't do shit.
Well, that's not entirely true.
In America, protests defined by people with or without signs standing in front of something yelling don't do shit.
Yeah, if you're just standing around and or holding signs and or just yelling, that's not going to do anything, right? If you want to actually have an effect, you need to have a protest that involves some sort of action or hinders people in some way. You know, like if you just stand there while people cut down trees, they're going to cut the trees. But if you're going to be a tree hugger and tie yourself to the tree, you might be
Get
able
arrested.
but you'll maybe have an effect,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, I maybe it's the point that for a protest to be effective, you have to have both an actual demand and an ultimatum.
But that's not to say that tying yourself to the tree is guaranteed to have an effect. It's just if you don't actually do something, you're guaranteed to have no effect.
But you need a demand, an ultimatum, and you have to actually be willing to follow through.
Absolutely.
Or, if your bluff gets called, you have to be like, yeah, you called my bluff, never mind. I don't want civil rights. I mean, let's look at some protests, because outside of my building, the Lincoln Building in Manhattan, for like months there have been protests by like the masonry whatever union.
The rat's outside my building this week.
Really? That rat was in front of my building for like a month straight.
From what I hear, the rat is actually a scam where this one company wants you to hire them. So if you hire a different company, they come with the rat outside your building.
And they say something like, this company employs shitty workers to do shitty work at low pay. You should hire us instead.
But it's like, did anyone ask? Those people that they hired, though, are in the building working. So it's like, when we ask them, and they'll be like, I'm fine. If those people don't like what they're being paid, how come they aren't outside with the rat?
Yeah, because the rat doesn't do it. The thing is, not only does the rat have no effect and does no one care, but usually the only people who pay attention to the rat are tourists, because they see this giant inflatable rat and they think it's some sort of attraction.
Yeah, they're like, what the hell is this rat? Oh my God.
I've seen Japanese tourists taking their pictures with it.
Yeah.
For a while, they actually stopped using the rat and they started using this coffin with a guy in it instead.
Really?
Because it was something about asbestos, but it was the same company doing the same thing. They're like, the company hired...
No, the asbestos union is right near my apartment. And, they actually just remodeled their entire little union center, and it's actually pretty nice now.
But they kept protesting in front of my building with the coffin, and they're like, the same thing, incompetent people hired to remove asbestos in your building. Evil, 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 evil. Here's a coffin.
They hired non-union guys, grr. It's like, all right, so they're saving money. Good on them.
Yeah, I'm not in a union.
Me either.
So, zero effect. Or what about the peace protesters? Even though I like these guys.
Yeah, those guys,
wrong.
they stand on the corner, right? They're having a good time.
This was up in Hopewell Junction.
Well, I mean,
in
there's
New York
everywhere
State.
in the U.S.
No,
right?
but very specifically, when we lived in Beacon, we would often, and until we realized it was stupid and stopped doing it, drive up the road to the mall and the ShopRite and everything. And every weekend, there were all these old people, cool old people. They'd sit on the corner, and they were just protesting for peace. They were like, honk if you want the Iraq war to end, bring our soldiers home. And I honked for those guys. They were cool guys, but they had no effect on anything.
No, it was completely, a waste of time. They weren't changing anyone's mind, right? They weren't, actually achieving anything that they wanted to achieve. All they were doing was having a good time and honking, getting people to honk their horns.
However, to their credit, they had nothing better to do, and they looked like they were having fun.
Yeah.
They're like, we have a message. We're just going to get our message out in the most effective way that we, as old non-technological people, know how to get it out. We're going to sit here, hang out, have fun, and we'll at least, people honk, and we'll know that, yeah, they saw us. Maybe they care a little bit.
Maybe.
And I remembered the saddest day was driving up the road one day and seeing the counter-protest of angry old people who were against peace.
Uh-huh.
Literally. Remember those guys? They were like, support our troops. Fuck Iraq. Woo!
They also achieved nothing.
Yep.
Except for wasting their own time.
Except, so we had a protest that was like, honk if you're against the Iraq war, and honk if you're pro the Iraq war, and they were at the same intersection, and it was just old people.
Yep.
with nothing better to do.
Well, I think that a lot of the protests you see nowadays are, old people, unemployed people, and occasionally young unemployed people. It's pretty much no one who has a job is protesting, anything, especially not during the week or during the day.
Yeah, that's why the
right?
Jon Stewart rally had such resonance.
That rat, if there's any, the people who are in the building working when the rat is there, they have a job. They're doing it right now. The people who are standing near the rat are standing near the rat because their company didn't get a job and they want you to hire their company instead. So because they have no work to do, they're going to stand there with the rat to try to extort you into hiring them so they have work to do.
Or remember that one day we were in Beacon and there was a family, there was a mother and their kids standing outside one of those car dealerships with a sign that was like, this car dealership ripped us off.
I don't remember that at all.
You don't remember that?
No.
We drove by it. We actually talked about it a lot.
I don't remember that.
Really?
No.
So that's it. I already said what happened.
But yeah, it wasn't, none of those people who had time to complain about, the car dealership ripping them off. They obviously didn't have work to do.
I hate to say it, but in the modern world, if you engage in physical protest where you don't have an ultimatum and the will to follow through, then you're basically just proving that you don't understand the term opportunity cost.
Well, I mean, it's even when you're not dealing with protesting, right? It's like I'll see people who will do all sorts of things that show that they don't understand opportunity cost. For example, I know people who will go to a comic book store and they'll buy comics, they'll buy extra copies, and they'll take extra to keep everything in mint condition, and then they'll go and they'll sell a whole bunch of stuff on eBay and speculate and try to make their money back, right? And try to buy a comic they know the price is gonna go up, or buy a variant cover and sell it for twice as much. And it's like, dude, if you worked minimum wage at McDonald's for every hour you spent, buying and selling comic books that you're not reading, you would probably be making more money than you are on these comic books, right? So they obviously people just don't, calculate their time. They don't factor in their own personal time into their monies, It's like if you are standing there protesting for 5 hours, you could have been working at McDonald's for 5 hours. They'll hire you, trust me.
See, now a real protest would be say this was about the gay marriage thing and a bunch of people got together and they went to the White House and they had a march or a rally, whatever. That really doesn't have much effect. But if they went and they're like, we're not leaving until we get it.
Yeah.
We're not leaving, arrest us.
Yeah, and you actually have to do something, they're not going.
You don't necessarily have to block.
Well, the thing is,
in fact, that often moves your protest from peaceful legal protest to illegal, they can arrest you.
But that's exactly what the point is, right? Is if you
No, it's only the point if by being arrested Thoreau style, you can actually make a difference. If I go smoke a joint to get arrested to then protest joint laws, that's not going to move my movement. I'm just going to be in jail.
No, but that's the whole thing. It's if you just stand there peacefully protesting without doing anything, it's not going to do anything. You need to go and get arrested, right?
No, you don't need
to
go arrested.
But it's not one guy smoking a joint isn't going to do anything. Get 20,000 people to all light it up.
Yes.
All at the same time, right?
Or
one guy smoking a joint isn't going to do shit.
Or if you go and say you're not going to leave, and you literally don't leave. If you've got 100,000 people not leaving, maybe even, hunger strike, some of that action.
Yeah, you actually have to do something threatening that will make them, they can't arrest you. All they can do is either A, concede, or B, do something that is very bad PR, massacre you.
I mean, that's why Gandhi was able to win, was that they were peaceful protests.
Yeah, Gandhi didn't just stand there. He freaking took all the salt and dumped it in the ocean. He would just not eat. And people would be like, oh, shit, we better do what Gandhi says or he's going to die from not eating. And then what's going to be from us? Oh, shit, we can't have Gandhi.
See, I know the corollary here. Protests don't work if the person you're protesting doesn't give a shit about you.
That's also absolutely correct, right? So let's say you are protesting, against police brutality. And then the police brutalize you. But they don't give a shit. They're like, yeah, we brutalized you. What are you going to do? Come get brutalized again, motherfuckers. Then no amount of protesting against the police brutality is going to work.
Yeah, your protest has to be aimed at the people who can do something about it.
Yeah, the only
public outrage.
Yeah, the only protest that's actually going to work against something like that is probably violence.
See, now,
or voting if you can do that.
When we say a threat, because a threat doesn't imply violence necessarily.
Not
it just
necessarily.
Means it's just an ultimatum that we want X, and we will not compromise on that.
Yep.
But I mean, I've never seen effective protests in America anymore.
At least not in my life in recent times.
This
You know,
is
I mean,
this
there
is why
are-
Jon Stewart's rally had such resonance, because the first thing they said is like, look, it's on a Saturday for a couple hours because we know that you have jobs and
Yeah,
shit to do.
But it still didn't do anything. It was basically a free concert for everybody.
Yeah, it was. No, we'll get to that because, you know, the next step up from a protest is a movement or a rally.
Yeah, what's it's not really any different from a protest.
Yeah,
It's just
I went to the
It's
rally.
a protest with a schedule.
I went to the rally. I kind of didn't want to go. I bailed on it because I was like, this is going to fail and be a disaster. But I went for the hell of it. I got slightly optimistic, and nah, it was a boring disaster. It was the only thing I got out
I
of
watched
it.
it on the internet, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yep, the only
Glad I
surprising thing
didn't drive all that way.
is that a lot of people showed up. It gave me a lot of hope. It proved to me that, yes, there are a lot of rational people, and everyone there was totally chill, but it had zero effect on anything. Other than it made the people who showed up feel good. It made them feel like they did something.
Yeah, but I mean, if you felt like you did something, then clearly you weren't that rational, right? I mean, it's basically, it looked to me when I was looking at pictures on the internet, was like, okay.
It was a normal person
It was
convention.
like, yeah, it was like 80% cool people showed up all at the same place at the same time. And I guess it's cool to hang out with cool people, just like at PAX or whatever.
It is.
But,
Everyone was totally cool.
But it's like if you went to PAX and there were no games.
However, that would have been fine because I could have a lot of fun just going to restaurants and hanging out.
Yeah,
because
you bring your own damn games with you.
But here's the trouble: Washington D.C. sucks ass.
It sure does.
And the entire city was basically
They do
fucked
that on
by this
purpose to
thing.
make protest. If Washington imagine it'd be so easy and comfortable to protest in New York.
Yeah.
If you had to protest, you know, the fact that's why they put DC in DC and not New York. So that way, it's like no one wants to protest there for that long because it sucks.
But basically all that rally taught me was that I will never go to a rally again in the rest of my life because they're pointless and boring.
But here's an example of some kind of protest that actually does something, right? So look at this recent news with Amazon and the pedophile book. You see that?
I saw that.
All right, so basically, here's what happened. There's some pedophile guy wrote a guide for pedophiles, and he put it on the Kindle on Amazon, which you can do. And Amazon at first was like, free speech, you know, hey, whatever. And I also agree, free speech. I mean, didn't have child porn in it. It was just a book up, you know, it's no different than Anarchist Cookbook. Just, you know, it's not like I would buy this book or that I agree with the book or I say pedophilia is good. I just
Wait, but just like the Anarchist Cookbook, so it gives you instructions that if you follow them will cause a small child to explode, killing you?
It gives you lots of instructions on how to be a pedophile, and it's like it's a pretty disgusting book. Anyway,
I haven't read it. I don't know.
from what I didn't read it either, but what I read basically the discussion of it was that, for example, it's a book that's like, hey, if you're a pedophile, listen, you should do this and you shouldn't do this. That way you won't get caught, and if you do get caught, you get a lighter sentence, and this way, you know, you won't hurt the children. You'll just, you know, it's like, oh, whoa.
Okay.
Right?
Anyway.
So it's that kind of book, you know, very questionable. And I don't agree with the book, but I agree that the book should be allowed to exist and be sold because freedom of speech.
But at the same time,
But-
no store should be required to sell it.
No, that's also true. But these people on Amazon in the comments, they protested, but they didn't protest just by going rabble, rabble, rabble. They actually said we're boycotting Amazon. Some lady was like, I emptied my shopping cart when I saw this book on here. So Amazon removed the book. They actually did something. They boycotted an actual
Yep.
doing of something.
You have to actually do something.
You know, or, you know, a stopping of doing something that you were doing. You know, like people will go and protest Walmart. It's like, well, stop shopping there. And you know what? If you can't get enough people to stop shopping there, Walmart's staying in town.
Or like I was in the big rally movement march against the Iraq War when it first started.
By accident.
Well, I was in New York anyway.
Happened to be.
Yeah, I happened to be in New
Didn't
York.
even know it was going on at
and
the same time.
and then I see these street, like I was walking around and then the streets got barricaded around me and I was kind of trapped. I'm like, what's going on? And then I realized, oh, there's a giant protest against the Iraq War. Well, I'm against the war and I'm already in, and I just walked along with it. I was just there.
So you just walked down a street, and what did walking down a street accomplish?
Now, had those people who had all been there said, and we're going to stop paying taxes until the war's done,
Yep,
that would have been a movement.
that would have been, but it wasn't. Instead, all they did was walk, and they got good leg exercise.
So, I mean, but then again, you could go too far. The next step from rally is, of course, riot.
Well, you know, the thing with a riot is that it only works in certain situations, right? Where
Riot only works if it leads to revolution.
Yeah, and you know, the main problem we have in the U.S., right, or at least in any, you know, relatively stable democracy, is that you can't really overthrow the government with just violence, right? Like, let's say something crazy happened, and and we managed to like do something ridiculous, like killing all the congressmen or something just out of control, right? Anyone managed to actually succeed at some sort of ludicrous violence, right? The government would stay in power. You wouldn't be able to unseat it.
If nothing else, it's like a chicken without a head. It'll keep running for a long time.
Yeah, you can't stop the U.S. government with any amount of violence, even if you kill all the generals and all the everybody.
Because the sheer momentum of bureaucracy at all levels will
there'll just be new elections, and they'll just appoint new representatives, and they'll elect a new president, and there's a big chain. We know who the next president's going to be. It's going to be the dog catcher from, some Kentucky or something. No, it's going to be someone. There's nothing you can do, right? But meanwhile, if you're in a tiny country, right, or some unstable country that's not a democracy, like you're Somalia, that's a perfect country.
Yeah, a riot can actually lead to revolution.
If you're in Somalia and you fucking kill all the warlords, guess what? You're in charge, because it works.
I think more fundamentally, this can be defined as just the idea that the civil order of America is too strong to be overthrown. And also,
with violence.
It
could be overthrown in other ways.
As a society, we are very intolerant of breakdowns of civil order. Basically, the moment you riot, the entire country is against you.
Yep.
No, and if something were big enough to where you riot and everyone's with you, that means civil order collapsed.
Yep. Look, they had we do have riots here. They're mostly out in the West. There's Rodney King riots, right?
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, but and they kind of worked.
Every now and then, worked in what sense?
Yeah, the LA police are still racially profiling everybody, and there's still police brutality everywhere. But
just people have no patience for anyone who violently disrupts civil order on a wide scale. Whenever a riot happens, pretty much everyone just wants the riot to stop.
Yep, except for the people rioting.
Yeah, but even then, I get the impression that most of the people rioting don't care about the cause of originally sparking the riot.
No, I think that most of the people, at least in the U.S., who riot are people who just kind of want to do rioting activities like looting and vandalizing and smashing and, hurting and whatever. And the riot is just an excuse.
Oh,
it's like they're sitting there and they really want to hurt people and break things, but they don't, right? Because no one else is doing it. But if everyone starts doing it, all right, I can do it. Everyone's doing it. Woo! And they let loose, which is what they wanted to do anyway. And no one else really wants to do that. So then all these people reveal their true selves, you catch them, and then the riot stops.
See, now look at the anti-war protests back in the 60s. Those were much more like real protests. Kent State, they got shot.
Yeah, well, they got shot, but what did they do to start it? They pushed the police a little bit. They were basically standing around yelling, just, more angrily.
Yeah, but nowadays people just kind of stand there. They're boring. But remember RIT, we had a riot.
That wasn't much of a riot.
Well, riot police came.
That's true, but no one was rioting. Basically, there was a party. It was a very large party. And then, they called...
Well, it was an organized flash mob party where basically out of nowhere, we lived in Colony, which was like this apartment complex, right next to campus, kind of isolated, by itself, connected, but across the street and away. And suddenly all over campus, these flyers appeared saying, Colony Palooza on X date.
Yep.
And everyone threw a party, and it was the biggest fucking party RIT had ever seen.
And basically, somebody called the police on this party. So
I remember
it's why didn't you just let the party go? Why did you have to stop? If you didn't try to stop it, it wouldn't have been an issue. But they wanted to stop it.
The party was actually going fine.
It was just people standing out there partying.
It was just a big frat party.
So they called this campus safety, and then because campus safety tried to break it up, then a conflict began. It's like if you'd have just not done anything, there wouldn't have been a conflict.
It was kind of hilarious what went down.
But apparently, there were some people throwing glass bottles at campus safety and/or the police.
No, what specifically happened was, one, we're hanging out and we're watching the party because we lived in the middle of this. And in fact, the main body of the party was directly outside of our first floor window.
Yeah, so we just watched the whole party.
We're watching the party, kind of enjoying it and whatever, and hanging out. We're playing D&D and whatever. And then our friends leave and they call us and they're like, yeah, every cop in the world is on their way to Colony. So we're expecting fun. What happened was campus safety showed up, and they were, telling the party to quiet down, and someone in the crowd threw a beer bottle, and it hit a campus safety guy in the head. Yeah. So he retreated, and riot police showed up and formed a battle line.
They just formed a big line. They all had shields and armor and whatever, and basically, the party people kept partying and left a gap between them and the police and didn't do anything.
Which was fine. The riot police didn't actually give an ultimatum yet. They just stood there.
Yeah.
And eventually the riot police like yell at the party to disperse, and the party's like, fuck you guys, but no violence happens. Everyone's kind of standing there. And I decide to go out and see the party at this point, watch the riot police, see what's going on. I walk around a little bit. And as we're walking out, everyone starts screaming and running because the riot police moved in after the crowd started chanting, "You can't arrest us all. You can't arrest us all." That's when the paintballs and the dogs came out.
No, it was mostly, I didn't see any dog action.
What are you talking about? We have a show we did a long time ago where you talked about the dog.
I don't remember any dogs.
Right outside our window. We're sitting there, right? We're watching. The riot police move in. And this guy directly in front of our window reaches down. He's drunk, picks up a bottle, raises it to throw it at the riot police. And the riot guy looks at him, signals. The dog runs up, takes him down by the neck, and then they pepperballed him in the face.
Yeah, it was mostly paintballs full of pepper mace.
Which, by the way, came into our windows. That sucked ass.
I didn't Yeah, it really sucked. And you know what? I think that's actually become one of the most popular police weapons these days. Because if you use
there's this great video on College Humor of this crazy homeless guy.
I saw it. They used them on him. I saw that.
Yeah, it didn't slow him down.
No, but it's like tasers. It's like tasers have a stigma, but like these pepper balls, it's like police love those fucking things. And why not? It's like you can just shoot them at anyone. And if you actually get hit with those, oh man, you're like, oh, you're out. And it's like you can mace someone from really far away.
However, I was not pleased with the fact that the police provided covering fire at all the balconies while they moved in.
No,
filling our apartment with pepper.
Yeah, it was not cool. Anyway.
The thing is, there was such like faux outrage on campus the next day. Everyone's like, oh my God, there was a riot and the riot police came in. Fuck our IT, blah, 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 blah. And then everyone forgot. No one on campus probably even remembers that.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone on campus remembers it, but at least people who were there and people, we remember it.
But there were people who remembered it with this like outrage and anger, and I remember it as this dumb, funny thing that happened on campus. It didn't accomplish anything. It wasn't a riot for anything.
No, but I think what it shows, though, is that a lot of protests and riots that have conflict like that, it's really only because somebody went and opposed it. It's like if someone's protesting a riot or doing something you don't like, don't go over there and pester them. Just let them do their thing, and there won't be any fighting. Fighting only happens if police or an opposing force appears to actually instigate. It's like, if the police didn't show up, people would have just gotten drunk until about 5 a.m. and then eventually all passed out and vomited or whatever, and then
they could just start the fire department to come and hose everybody down.
Yeah, what
actually that would have been great. The fire department
should
have just showed up and hosed everybody down. That would have ended the party.
Yeah. But, the thing is like there was no harm being done. There was only an issue because you tried to shut it down. If you would have just left it alone, it would have just gone away. If there's some crazy people protesting, like the rat, just ignore the stupid rat.
Except here's the thing. Everyone ignores him anyway.
That's what I'm saying.
So you don't need, that's not advice for anyone. Everyone
it's
already
advice
does that.
for the people who called the cops. Don't do that. Just let it go.
I mean, I don't know what else we can say. Protests are stupid now. They don't do anything. They're basically they're like wearing a sign that says, "I have nothing better to do right now."
Yeah. Very much you can translate every protest sign into "I have nothing better to do right now."
So
if you're gonna protest, if there's something you don't like and something you want to change, you have to, don't standing around with signs is not really gonna help, right? You need to do something. I mean, unless you're
you have to do something that cannot be ignored.
Yeah, I mean, for example, right, there is some times where you can help in some ways. For example, when the anonymous you will protest Scientology, right? They're not really going to stop Scientology in any way with that, just standing around with signs. But they might be able to inform people who don't know
that's
better.
What I'm saying. They were at least raising awareness about a thing that people do care about. Because I even know a lot of smart people who don't actually realize that Scientology is a crazy batshit cult made up by a sci-fi author.
That's incredibly dangerous and takes all your money.
Yeah, but there are people who don't know that.
Yeah.
And Anonymous does a good job of getting that word out.
But I mean, spreading awareness isn't really protesting, right? I mean, it might look like protesting.
Yeah, the protests themselves don't do anything.
Yeah, because they might stand outside the Scientology place with signs.
They were there the other day.
So it looks like a protest, but it's, it's not really a protest because they're not really, saying, do this, because I said so. All they're saying is, hey, people who, this thing is that you're looking at here isn't what it appears to be. It's more like, standing on a soapbox and preaching than protesting.
Well, that's it. It's something that can't be ignored because it gathers more media attention than Scientology can direct away from it.
Yep. And the thing is...
Also, they have alternate utility. They do it for the lulz.
Of course. And, while there are many, you could say, well, look... we stood out there and we protested in front of the White House for 3 days with our signs, and we were getting awareness, right? So, our protests.
But if awareness doesn't lead to action, it's useless.
That's true. But at the same time, I think a lot of people protest things that they're not increasing any awareness whatsoever. Like if you go protest in front of like an abortion clinic, as many people do who have nothing better to do, no, they're not increasing any awareness. People fucking know what abortion is.
Yeah.
You're not making anyone aware who is not aware.
I mean, if I go we could try to raise awareness. What if we go outside of, chiropractor offices and just hand out brochures pointing out his bullshit and hold signs?
We could do that.
We could do that. Maybe we should do that.
But the problem is, you know what? We know why I don't do that?
Because people are stupid.
I got something better to do. But yeah, good types of protests, right? Boycotting, actually, if like there's a Walmart and you want to protest it, if that store is empty for a whole day, they'll be fucking
but it only works
shit.
if it can't be ignored. If I boycott Walmart and no one else does, no effect. You have to do something that has an ultimatum and a goal and cannot be ignored by the people who have the power to take action.
Yep. Or, book burning doesn't really help, right? Because it's just like, whatever, dude. But, if you were to...
you don't got a Quran now. You got no Quran. I love that guy.
If you made a meme, right, and thus were able to, get the book to, like, how they got, Machine of Death to the top of Amazon? If you're able to get something to the bottom of Amazon, which I think it's kind of hard to do that, because if you draw attention to it, you're only going to increase sales, whether it's positive or negative attention.
Because at least one crazy pedophile saw the news and they were like, oh, there's a guide.
But maybe if you spam the Amazon reviews to get it all the way down to 0 stars, maybe that would keep it away from getting high in the search results and would crush its sales.
Maybe we should get an organized movement of anti-pseudoscience bullshit people to just put bad reviews on Amazon for all the pseudoscience bullshit.
Maybe we could do that.
Yeah.
But, you have to actually do something that has some effect on some level.
We keep saying the same thing over and over again. I think we're done.
We're done. I'm hungry.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.